Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kagwema. I have decided to prepare and launch this particular channel in YouTube so as to share different issues in relation to linguistics and the other social matters pertaining to national and international issues. Actually, my specialization is linguistics, and it has been my long time interest in linguistics. So I'll be sharing some key issues in relation to linguistics as part of discussion. So you can give comments after listening and watching this particular video from time to time to improve this video and this platform for sharing. As we know, linguistics is the scientific study of language, and when we talk of scientific study of language, that means human language can be systematically studied to establish the underlying rules and the surface rules that operate in human language. Therefore, if linguistics is the scientific study of language, linguistics has been traditionally divided into two groups or two branches, which are major ones. Branch number one is called core linguistics, and the branch number two is called applied linguistics. When we talk of core linguistics, this implies the basic linguistics, theoretical linguistics. That means trying to understand the basics of linguistics. In any language, there are basics which include sounds, words, morphemes, clauses, and sentences, and so forth. So, as long as we all know that core linguistics supplements applied linguistics or creates the base to applied linguistics, which applied linguistics is to do with the way language is used, the way language is applied, and applying the basic knowledge of linguistics into realities. So in core linguistics, we have phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and the pragmatics, partly. Though pragmatics sometimes is regarded as as applied linguistics. Mine is to start dealing with one part after another. I'll be dealing with core linguistics, and in later days I'll be dealing with applied linguistics. To begin with, let us discuss about phonetics. As far as this platform is concerned, I will conceptualize phonetics, and then I will move further by trying to classify phonetics into its component branches, and thereafter I will talk about the aims and scope of phonetics, and the other one will be now going deep into one of the branches of phonetics called articulatory phonetics. This will give me time to discuss about airstream mechanisms. It will be also an opportunity to discuss about speech mechanisms. Again, I will be concentrating on consonant and vowel production, and thereafter I will move into discussing multiple articulation, and then I will move into suprasegmental features, which will be dealing with stress, pitch, intonation, rhythm, length, and so forth. Lastly, I will be dealing with the IPA chart as well as transcription. I will talk of phonetic transcription and phonological transcription. Now, to begin with, what is phonetics? It is my hope that you know what phonetics is. You must be having some knowledge about phonetics. Well, phonetics is the study of speech sounds across world languages. The study of speech sounds across world languages. The important thing that I would like to capitulate here is that phonetics studies speech sounds. So we have sounds, for example, ora, ha 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 ha. All these are sounds, but they are not speech sounds. Speech sounds are the sounds produced by organs of speech as part of intelligible communication. So, for a sound to be called speech sound, it should be produced by human organs of speech, and it should be intelligible sound, and it should be used in human communication. If we have such a sound, we say that this is a speech sound. So the duty of phonetics is simply to have a systematic or scientific study to establish how human beings produce speech sounds. How human beings produce speech sounds. And we all know we have different languages in the world with different speech sounds. So it is not possible to understand these speech sounds unless one knows phonetics. So phonetics will give you the base to know the speech sounds of the world scientifically. Having said so, the second thing that we need to discuss is actually the branches of phonetics. But before I discuss the branches of phonetics, let me discuss the aims and scope of phonetics. Phonetics, as I have just said, has the major aim of identifying speech sounds of world languages. That is the major aim of phonetics. Now, as I say, it studies world languages in terms of their speech sounds. It is important also to know that when we talk of world languages, we mean that all languages spoken in different places of the world. It is estimated that more than 6,000 languages are spoken across the world. And out of these, only few of them have been given scripts or have been documented. If that is the case, we need now to have phonetics, the study of sounds, to understand sounds of the rest of the world, which in turn will help us to document some of these sounds. Thus, having said so, it is important now to understand basic aims. 1. Phonetics is aimed at identifying the language to be studied and identifying the speeches, sounds of that language. So you identify, let's say, Swahili language as the language of your study, and then you will therefore identify the speech sounds of that particular language. After having identified what are the speech sounds of that particular language, as you speak, as you listen the native speakers of that particular language, you identify the speech sounds, and thereafter, the second thing that you will have to do as a phonetician is to classify the speech sounds. Speech sounds are normally classified into two groups. The first group with the are those speech sounds which are produced without obstruction of air from the lungs. So if you have a sound produced without obstruction of air, you will classify that sound as vowel. So you will have two classifications. Number one will be the so-called consonants, and number two will be the so-called vowels. Consonant sounds are those which are produced with obstruction of air. We shall discuss it sometimes later in this course. But having classified the sounds, the next thing is to describe the sounds. You will have then to describe those sounds which you have classified. We shall discuss how to describe consonant sounds, how to describe vowel sounds. And lastly, you'll have to give symbols for those sounds, because you cannot have sounds unless you have symbols. So we'll give symbols for those sounds, and these are called IPA symbols, International Phonetic Alphabet. We'll discuss it at the last part of this discussion. Now, having understood the scope and aims of phonetics, let us discuss branches of phonetics. Phonetics has 3 branches. But before discussing branches, it is important to understand. We discuss about language. Language is part of communication, means of communication, and for any communication to take place, there must be 2 parts, the speaker and the listener. So, phonetics is divided into 3 parts based on communication. The first part is part of the speaker. It's called articulatory phonetics. When we speak, we articulate sounds. This is called articulatory phonetics, how human being produces speech sounds. We produce speech sounds, but how? Articulatory phonetics investigates the way human being produces speech sounds across the world. So, the way human being can produce speech sound is studied under articulatory phonetics, which will be the major concern of this lesson. The second branch is called acoustic phonetics. Now, when we speak, before the listener hears the sound travels from the speaker to the hearer. Acoustic phonetics, therefore, is there to study how human speech sounds travels from the speaker to the hearer. It travels through the air, and therefore, acoustic phonetics studies the physics of sounds. It studies things like sound waves. It studies things like duration. How long does a sound take from the speaker to the hearer? And this is normally studied in libraries by means of spectrogram, an instrument which is used to measure sound waves. The last branch of phonetics is called auditory phonetics. Auditory phonetics. As you know, the word auditory comes from the word audio. Audio is to do with sound, okay, or voice, in other words. So, the way a hearer or a listener perceives the sounds That is auditory phonetics. It investigates how the hearer perceives the sound. After the sound comes and hits the eardrum, how the sound is perceived. So these are the three branches of phonetics.